Servus and hello guys, welcome back to another video. Today we take a look at a video called History's Biggest Lies You Still Believe by the channel Professor Stein. I'm sorry, I've never seen the video of this, I think. And I'm a German history student living in Bavaria and doing since few days I started doing reaction videos, and I stumbled about this one, and I think as a history student and generally history interested, I can tell you some things, maybe some thoughts I have about these. And I'm looking into here, and I'm already seeing some I already know. So maybe the Einstein one that he failed in class. I knew that is wrong, and Cleopatra was Egyptian. No, she was she was Egyptian, not. She was Greek, not Egyptian, and the Ptolemies were one of the last Greek kingdoms or dynasties in at the time of the Roman Empire, and thanks to their incest, they stayed that way. But yeah, the rest just let's start.
Germany started World War I.
Let's get started with the list. If you're new channel, maybe consider liking, subscribing, or commenting how you like my style. And without further ado, let's get started.
Germany started World War I. For over a century we've been told that. Textbooks, Hollywood films, and even the Treaty of Versailles itself hammered home.
I mean, yeah, they had a huge part in it, and if they haven't given the blanco check to Austria-Hungary, things probably would have played out differently. But yeah, the new science, I mean, there's like a really famous book from Christopher Clark called The Sleepwalkers, which is about how every nation had its part in the start of the World War I.
The war guilt clause, blaming Germany alone. In reality, the war was the result of a continent-wide system of entangled alliances, secret treaties, imperial rivalries, and reckless mobilization timetables that turned a Balkan crisis into a global slaughter.
Yeah, basically for the last 20 years, everyone was heavily building up their armies, and they had all huge armies, and most of them felt like they were in an advantage now, and especially Germany thought this is the time to fight the war, to balance things out, or put yourself in the full position in the European theater, and so everyone had motivations and reason to start this war, but Germany as well.
France actively sought revenge for the Franco-Prussian War and funded Russian mobilization. Russia was the first great power to order general mobilization, knowing it meant war. Britain had secret...
And the Germans didn't expect them to do that fast. The they expected the Russians to be very slow, because like they're a big country and not very modernized, and they thought the Russians will take ages, and they didn't. So that was the plan behind the Schlieffen Plan. First beat France, then go to Russia, because they thought Russia is slow, but they were faster than expected.
Commitments to
well,
France,
let's get going. That's the first one, but I'm very interested in World War I, so I have a bit to say there.
This Black Hand orchestrated the assassination of heir Archduke Franz Ferdinand, which
was one of the only supporters, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, one of the only supporters of more rights for the Bosniak and overall Slavic minorities in the Austrian-Hungary Empire. So he is really the dumbest person to assassinate if you're fighting for your rights. But I mean, they probably took what they got, and he was there, so they tried it.
to Austria-Hungary declaring war on Serbia, which in turn led to a rapid escalation of conflicts between European powers. Germany certainly deserves blame, especially for the reckless blank check to Austria and the invasion of Belgium, but the idea that Kaiser Wilhelm single-handedly started the war was deliberate Allied propaganda that made the Versailles punishment seem justified. The Vikings wore horned helmets. This idea came
I think they found like a horn in one of the tombs, and then for the next years thought they wore it on a helmet, but I think it was just a drinking horn. So there where it's from, maybe.
From 1800s opera costume designers who added horns for dramatic effect.
Ah, cool. Okay, okay. That's I'm completely wrong. Probably Wagner, maybe, who did it.
Viking helmets like the Järmundby were simple, practical pieces of armor, often with a nose guard but never horns, since horns would have been dangerous and impractical in battle, giving enemies something to grab onto, and the horns could get stuck on tree branches during a raid. Archaeologists have found authentic Viking helmets confirming this. The confusion likely came from horned helmets discovered in Denmark that were over 3,000 years older than the Viking era. These were ceremonial, more like crowns than combat gear.
Okay, yeah.
Napoleon was short. Actually, Napoleon Bonaparte...
I think another one where it was just enemy propaganda that he was short. I think he was normal height for time standards.
Bonaparte's height was around 5'6" to 5'7", in modern terms, average or above average for his era. The myth began because his recorded height used the old French inch system, which made him seem smaller when converted incorrectly. He also appeared shorter next to his tall imperial guards, adding to the illusion. British propaganda, especially satirical cartoons by James Gilray, exaggerated his size to mock him as a small, angry man. This false image eventually inspired the term Napoleon complex, linking short stature with overcompensating behavior based on a misunderstanding. The Trojan horse story, told in Greek and Roman works like Homer's Odyssey and Virgil's Aeneid, describes the Greeks hiding inside a giant wooden horse to infiltrate Troy after a...
Yeah, I think in the Iliad there's nothing about that, and I just let go where he wants to go with the
decade-long war. However, no physical evidence of such a horse has ever been found, and the detailed versions were written 400 to 800 years after the supposed event. Archaeology confirms Troy was burned in 1200 BC, but not by a wooden horse. The tale was probably symbolic or inspired.
And I have heard some videos that there's some wording, close wordings where you can interpret horse, the word horse in the sources as boat, if I remember correctly. So that it was maybe a giant boat that I gifted to them, where inside the body people were hiding. If probably the story isn't true at all, or is heavily exaggerated, because like Trojan Wars, like it was told, probably never happened this way, but maybe they thought more about that.
By real tactics, siege weapons covered in horse hides, ships referred to as seahorses, or even an earthquake that broke Troy's walls. The Einstein failed math myth is untrue.
Yeah, and this is because he actually, what I heard is that he studied in Switzerland, and in Switzerland, in Germany, the 1 is the best grade you can get, and the 6 is the worst grade. But in Switzerland, that's the other way around. So the best grade is the 6 point and the 6, and the 1 is the worst. And because he got all 6s in math, people from Germany assumed he was really bad. This is the answer I heard.
In fact, Albert Einstein was a math prodigy, mastering algebra and geometry by age 12 and calculus by 15. The myth likely began from a misunderstanding of the Swiss grading system, where 6 was the highest score instead of the lowest as in other European countries, making his top marks look like failures. Another source of confusion came from his first attempt at the Zurich Polytechnic entrance exam, which he did fail due to weak scores in languages, history and biology, but not math or physics. Einstein himself later clarified that he had never failed mathematics. The Great Wall of China can be seen from space. This myth began in 1754 when English writer William Stukeley claimed the wall was visible from the moon, and it was
Okay, but at a time where you have actually no clue about space at all, that's okay, yeah.
later popularized in a 1932 Ripley's Believe It or Not illustration that repeated the false claim. The wall is too narrow and blends with.
But is it true that you can see the pyramids from space? I mean, that's one I hear as well, and probably not right if you can't see the wall of China. But I mean, it's like real more thicker. I don't know. And the question is, once space is relative, people think the ISS, but I think the ISS is really close to the Earth. It's like really in low orbit, and it's not comparable to like outer space or
the landscape, making it almost invisible even from low Earth orbit. Astronauts have confirmed this, noting that highways, airports, and dams are far easier to spot with the
probably
naked
the
eye.
pyramids.
The idea persisted because of the wall's immense length and early speculation, but in reality, only special cameras or satellite imaging can detect parts of it under perfect conditions. Columbus discovered America. When Christopher Columbus arrived in 1492, the continents were already inhabited by millions of indigenous peoples who had lived there for thousands of years.
Yeah, which came, is it correct about the Bering Strait in like Alaska? Yeah, but I mean, obviously, I think everyone who learns Columbus found it in like 1400s. Also here's, I mean, in Europe at least, that Leif Erikson, the Viking, discovered it like in the at 10,000 BC. No, BC is AC. What's after Christus? So like 1000. Yeah.
Norse explorers like Leif Erikson had reached North America, likely in present-day Canada, around the year 1000.
Or who played the game Assassin's Creed Valhalla also knows this.
Centuries before Columbus. His voyages were limited to the Caribbean and parts of Central and South America. He never set foot on the mainland of the modern United States. Columbus also believed he had reached islands near Asia, calling the locals Indians, unaware he had encountered an entire separate continent. Rats spread the Black Death. Recent research from the University of Oslo suggests the plague that killed a third of Europe in the 14th century was more likely spread by human fleas and...
Okay, but this is also common knowledge, right? That that the fleas on the rats were the ones spreading it. And also, I think also on some other animals, but I'm not sure if that's right. And this pest mask had nothing to do with the pest, because these pest masks shows there were like never seen in any medieval depictions. They came from like the 1800s, where they were like as a symbol in like place or something like this, or just but they are not were never worn in the medieval times for the plague.
And lice, not rats. When scientists compared models of how the disease spread, the pattern linked to human parasites matched historical death rates far better than the rat-based model. This means the real culprits were likely human-to-human transmission through parasites, not the rodents long blamed for one of history's...
That I actually didn't know. Okay, yeah. I mean, okay, they have something to learn here.
Deadliest pandemics. The samurai hated guns. When Portuguese traders introduced firearms to Japan in 1543, samurai in fact quickly adopted and mastered them. Japanese gunsmiths began producing their...
To be fair, I actually know way too little about the Japanese or the East Asian history at all to talk something here, because that's actually something you neither in school or in the university you learn something about East Asian history.
Their own matchlock guns, improving the designs and creating tactics far ahead of their time. Warlords like Oda Nobunaga used firearms to great success by defeating traditional cavalry with organized gun formations. Firearms later declined during the Edo period, not because samurai rejected them, but because the Tokugawa government restricted their use to prevent rebellion during an era of peace. The idea of samurai rejecting guns came centuries later, popularized by
probably from The Last Samurai. That this is my whole knowledge about this topic, that they don't use guns out of honor.
films like The Last Samurai. In reality, samurai used firearms as tools of war and integrated them into their training. The Salem witch trials in colonial Massachusetts are often associated with the image of a woman being burned at the stake. They took place from February 1692 to May 1693, accused 200 people of witchcraft, convicted 30.
It's crazy that yeah, people assume witch trials as something medieval, but the major amount of witch trials again is in the modern time, or in the what's in English? I'm looking forward for the time after 1500, and yeah, a lot of them happening here out of religious reasons, and religion wars which came after the Reformation.
And executed 20, but none were burned. Executions were by hanging or pressing with heavy stones. The idea of burning witches comes from European practices in countries like Germany, Scotland, and France, which later generations mistakenly applied to Salem. Roman vomitoriums. The common myth portrays the vomitorium as a special room in Roman villas where the wealthy would go to purge themselves during a banquet feast so they could eat more. In reality, Romans did not vomit between courses.
Yeah, I heard about that, but I never really assumed that this is really true, because this sounds like some really exaggeration. And I'm sorry. And but in Germany we have, like, in old pubs, in Kneipen we call them. In some of them there's, like, down in the toilet area you have like normal bathroom stalls, and then you have like the washing table, and then you have a big it's like a big something to vomit into, which like is like formed like a V, and then you vomit there, and you have like a water hose to to clean it again. And some of them have it, and it's like really German. So if you drink too much, you go there. You take a piss, and then you just vomit, and then you go up again. Yeah, that's about that. Yeah.
Maybe did, but at least not in dedicated rooms. The so-called vomitorium was a passageway in amphitheaters and stadiums. Its name comes from the Latin vomere, meaning to spew forth, describing how the passageways efficiently emptied large crowds, like the Colosseum's 50,000 spectators, in about 15 minutes. The
Crazy.
misconception arose from later writers misinterpreting the term, and today vomitorium still refers to crowd exit passageways in modern venues. Jesus' birthday. Most scholars agree that the exact date of Jesus' birth between 6 and 4 BC is unknown. The Gospels of Matthew and Luke, the only accounts of his birth, do not give a month or season, though Luke notes shepherds were tending flocks at night, which is unlikely.
Yeah, I think the cliche is to say that he was born in summer, but probably this will teach me wrong.
Likely in December. Some traditions calculate his birth by assuming the Annunciation, the Archangel Gabriel's visit to Mary, occurred on March 25th, placing his birth 9 months later on December 25th. Other traditions celebrate it on January 6th in the Eastern Orthodox Church, or in spring or fall. December 25th likely originated from early Christians and Emperor Constantine to replace pagan festivals like Sol Invictus and Saturnalia, which celebrated the winter solstice and the return of the sun to.
Yeah, but on the other hand, you could do the same, because in the summer they have like the same fest, the summer, yeah, I don't know, in Germany, Sommersonnenwende, the longest day of the year.
Encourage conversion. The Great Chicago Fire of 1871 killed over 300 people and left many homeless, but the famous story of Mrs. O'Leary's cow knocking over a lantern was fabricated by a newspaper seeking a sensational tale. Mrs.
Chicago Fire,
O'Leary, being poor, Irish, Catholic and a woman, made an easy scapegoat. The true cause of the fire remains unknown. Historians suggest possibilities like neighborhood boys with a cigarette or even a meteor shower igniting fires across the area. The humans thought the Earth was flat myth. Educated people
I think they knew since like the Greek time. There was like a Greek, or like in Egypt, a probably still Greek philosopher or mathematician who calculated the curvature of the Earth by having like from Alexandria to another town somewhere in Egypt, and then the sunset on different times or something like this. So they knew from like the ancient time that it was not flat.
Have known the Earth is round since ancient Greece. Philosophers like Pythagoras and Aristotle provided evidence for a spherical planet in the 4th century BC, and Eratosthenes even calculated its circumference with remarkable accuracy in the 3rd century BC. The idea that medieval Europeans thought the Earth was flat is a myth, popularized in the 17th and 19th centuries to depict a supposed conflict between science and religion. Christopher Columbus also did not set sail to prove the Earth was round. His crew feared the journey would take longer than expected because they underestimated the planet's size. The Cleopatra was Egyptian myth comes from the fact that she was
she was king or queen of Egypt, but her dynasty, the Ptolemies, which she was the last one of, were from Greece.
The last ruler of Egypt and embraced.
And there was also like in example, for example, Alexandria, there was like a mix of Greek people, and the Greek people were like the upper class, and the lower class were like the Egyptians, and there was like culture conflicts and class conflicts there between these.
Many Egyptian customs to rule effectively, but she was of Macedonian Greek ancestry from the Ptolemaic dynasty. The idea of her as a seductive Egyptian beauty is also
and I think the Ptolemaics were like the first one was like one of the supporters or like generals or something like this from Alexander. So that's why they got this kingdom.
Exaggerated, fueled by Roman propaganda and later Hollywood. Her influence came from intelligence, charisma, and political skill, not physical appearance. The story that she died from a snake bite is also unproven. Vincent van Gogh's ear. The story that Van Gogh cut off his entire ear in a fit of madness is untrue. He severed only the lower part of his left earlobe during a period of severe psychological distress. The act may have been triggered by a heated argument with his friend Paul Gauguin, financial pressure and fear of abandonment. People in the Middle Ages only lived to 30. The concept...
Yeah, that's also not true. The thing that really lowers the average life expectancy is child death, because there was like, until you were 7, there's like a 50-50 chance that you survive at all because of so many child diseases and stuff like that. And so if you became over, I don't know, 7, 8, 9, you're pretty good chance to live up to 50, 60. Like and people, it was not unseen of people being 80 or 90 years old even.
The concept of life expectancy in ancient and medieval times is misunderstood. While average life expectancy at birth was around 30 to 35 due to high infant and child mortality, those who survived childhood often lived well into their 50s or 60s. The low average reflects deaths in infancy, early childhood, and the dangers of childbirth, not imminent death after reaching adulthood. Skeletal evidence and historical records show many adults lived long lives, and since life expectancy is an average, the lifespan metric is heavily distorted by early deaths. The idea that Galileo was imprisoned for his heliocentric model is a myth. Nicolaus Copernicus published his heliocentric theory in 1543, way before Galileo, without punishment. Galileo's real conflict arose because he offended Pope Urban, who had been funding his research, by publicly mocking him and not following the church's required procedures to validate the model. The issue was personal and political, not purely scientific. He was found guilty by the Inquisition and sentenced to house arrest, not punishment or a dungeon. Corsets were torture devices. While extreme tight lacing could be harmful, most corsets back then were everyday supportive garments, similar to a modern bra. They helped shape fashionable silhouettes, supported the back, and provided
Don't know anything about that actually. Never heard about them being torture devices.
Comfort and confidence. Only a small number of wealthy women wore them for extreme waist reduction. For most, corsets were practical clothing rather than instruments of pain. Paul Revere's Midnight Ride on April 18, 1775.
Is that Independence War? I don't know much about US history. Sounds like I tried to, the timeline might be right, that he was like alarming people of the what's called Lexington massacre. No, Lexington, something Lexington.
Was part of a coordinated effort by local patriots in the province of Massachusetts Bay to warn Minutemen of the approaching British army before the battles of Lexington and Concord.
Yeah, that's what I
heard
about.
Revere was not the only rider. William Dawes and several others also carried warnings. Contrary to popular myth, Revere also didn't shout, "The British are coming!" Most colonists still considered themselves British, so the phrase would have been confusing. His ride relied on secrecy, using a network of riders, signal guns, and church bells to spread the alarm. The fame of Revere's ride comes mainly from Washington Irving's 1861 poem, which exaggerated his role as a lone hero. The Allies fought the Nazis to save Jews from the start. The idea that
I feel like they didn't really know about the concentration camps for the most time, or a little bit, but like in the late times, even Germans didn't know what happening. So I feel like this was not. I didn't think that was the reason, and I feel like for the most part it wasn't.
Nazis were universally opposed from the start because of their treatment of Jewish people is misleading. Anti-Semitism was widespread in the West before World War II, and Allied intervention was not initially motivated by a desire to stop the Holocaust. The scale of Nazi atrocities only became fully recognized once the genocide was revealed. The Holocaust succeeded in part because many countries refused to accept Jewish refugees, reflecting the broader indifference and prejudice of the time. The Library of Alexandria's single fire. The library...
Yeah, everybody's talking about that, how the fire of Alexandria... I think there was not a fire, but it was decay over centuries. Or decades, centuries, and there have maybe been some raids, but it was not a single fire which destroyed the Library of Alexandria, which people are always saying is like one of the human's greatest tragedies, but yeah.
Of Alexandria was not destroyed in a single catastrophic fire. Its decline happened gradually over centuries due to neglect, political conflict, and multiple events. Julius Caesar's fire in 48 BC damaged nearby ships and warehouses, but likely spared the main library. Later, the Serapeum Library, part of the Great Library of Alexandria, was destroyed by a Christian mob in 391 AD, and the Arab conquest in 642 AD may have caused further losses. The library's demise was a slow process. The idea that Gandhi single-handedly freed India is a myth. While his non-violent movement mobilized millions and was crucial, independence in 1947 resulted from multiple factors. The contributions of other leaders like Nehru and Subhas Chandra Bose, armed movements such as the Indian National Army, economic and political strain on Britain after World War II, and events like the 1946 Royal Indian Navy mutiny. The story of Emperor Nero fiddling while Rome burned never happened. The Great Fire of Rome in 64 AD
I think this
destroyed
is
much
also
of the city, but the
people
violin...
saying it was him who fired it up. I don't think people know how many times Rome burned, because it was a lot of buildings were built out of wood, and yeah, they even had like local firefighters and stuff like that.
Didn't exist until nearly 1,000 years later. Historical accounts by Tacitus and others, written decades after Nero's death, combine fact with rumor. Tacitus records that Nero wasn't even in Rome when the fire began. He returned to organize relief efforts, opened his palaces to shelter the homeless, and arranged food supplies. The image of Nero playing music while the city burned likely arose as a metaphor for neglect, shaped by later writers who viewed him as a symbol of corruption and decadence. Propaganda turned a complex ruler into a cartoon villain. The pyramids were built by slaves. Archaeological evidence shows...
Yeah, I hear that there were like a lot of workers, and which had like even canteens and stuff like that, and they found lists for payment, and yeah.
That the pyramids were constructed by paid, skilled workers, farmers and seasonable laborers, not enslaved people. Excavations have uncovered a workers' village near the pyramids, complete with dormitories, bakeries and even a hospital, indicating an organized community. The builders' tombs, found close to the pyramids, contained food offerings, but no treasures or signs of mummification, suggesting they were honored workers rather than slaves. Studies of their remains show they ate meat regularly and suffered from injuries consistent with heavy labor, not abuse. The myth likely came from Greek historian Herodotus, who visited Egypt long after the pyramids
It was like 2,000 years after
were built, and was later reinforced by Hollywood. How and whether humans alone built them remains another debate.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this video. I learned some things I knew, or a part of them knew. Like I knew like the plague wasn't solely by rats, but I didn't know it was mostly about humans. And yeah, check out this video and maybe check out their channel. The link's down below from them. And I hope you enjoyed this video. If yes, this is my like third video. Type down in the comments what did I do good. How did you like it? I hope my English is good enough. And maybe give me a like or a follow. And I hope I see you in the next video, guys. See you.